Hey, hello, hello. Well, I decided to do something different today. We're going to talk about what's known as cognitive psychology. All right? And we're going to use the Lucky Ward case and Letitia Stout case to talk about this. So, we're talking about opposite minds, but our focus is on cognitive psychology. So, let me bring this back into focus for you. This isn't about what happened. It's about how two completely different minds process reality. One breaks down under pressure, the other one builds a story to survive it. That's what this is about. So let's go ahead and talk about, and I hope you enjoyed Lucky Ward yesterday. Hey, Sprinkled, I didn't know you were off today. Girl, let me send you the link. You want to come up? Hang on. Are you off? Okay, let me send you this link. I didn't know. Hang on a minute. Okay, let me see. All right, let me get back over here where I was. Let me send you this link right quick. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, invite a guest. All right, now hang on a minute. I'm going to send this to you, and we can get going from there. Good. Well, hang on, silly me. Come on, Sprinkle. Where are you at now? Ooh, just can't get right today now. Okay, here we go. Paste. All right, there you go. Yeah. All right, now to get back to where I was. And the reason why we're going to talk about cognitive psychology is because it's an interesting. Okay, I just sent it to you. It's interesting, and it's interesting how it works between these two cases. They both took the lives of people. They both have mental illnesses, but their mental illnesses are very different, and their thought process is very different as well. So that's what we're going to talk about here. Okay, let me bring you up real quick. Yeah. I was gonna do the Clancy show today, but then I decided, you know what? No, I want to talk about this instead because this cognitive traits and I've always been interested in how the person's mind works, and so I thought, well,
Right.
we're gonna do this show instead, and we'll do Clancy tomorrow or whatever, or sometime this weekend we'll go ahead and do Clancy. But you know, when you compare Lucky Ward to Letitia Stouch, they're very, very different minds. We saw yesterday that Lucky Ward's mind is very fragmented, but Letitia Stouch's mind is very controlled, very
Well,
manipulative.
he's very fragmented, but he's very honest. I mean, he showed remorse over the first killing. He was like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it." I mean,
Right?
he he's not a sociopath or a psychopath where he doesn't have any kind of remorse or any feelings.
Right.
There's a big difference in the personalities of these two. She's just evil, period. He just is really had, I think, a childhood, and drugs and things really got him in a bad place physically, mentally, emotionally, where things
Right.
happen that, were not beyond his control, because of course we all have free will and we are all responsible for our own actions. However, his situation was very different than Letitia's. I mean, she's
Now,
never ever said that she had any kind of remorse for killing Gannon,
oh
ever.
God, no, no. And she also claims she had a bad childhood, which is not exactly true.
No,
Okay.
I
The
don't
thing
believe
is
that at all.
we can't trust anything Letitia Stouch has ever said to us,
No,
actually, because
no.
she's proved to be a liar so many
I
different
mean,
times.
she's lied over, the sexual harassment, the losing the teaching job. I mean, how many people have sexually harassed her in her life?
Right.
Alice
How many
Boss, the
times?
principal at the school. Come on, you're not that pretty, Letitia. You're not
How
all
many
that.
times has she been pregnant? How many times? She uses
Amen on that
pregnancy as
one
a
too.
yeah, yeah. Right.
And I mean, and I may be a total horrible person for even
Hmm.
thinking it, but I sometimes wonder if she had anything to do with her first husband's death.
Oh no, listen, I've always thought she did.
You
100%.
know,
I've always thought
I
she did. Yeah.
it's just the fact that she lied to Harley about how he died. That to me is
Hmm.
a big red flag of her possibly being involved in it. whether she was with him when he was doing the drugs, whether she brought him the drug. There was something there there was some kind of correlation there. I truly believe that.
Well, what he overdosed on was not his drug of choice. That
Yeah.
tells me somebody else gave that to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that always
Yeah.
comes back to her.
Right. Right.
In my opinion, I'm not going to say
Absolutely.
allegedly. I really do believe it. I believe it. So anyway, but yeah. The word for the day is cognitive psychology. That's what we're going to talk about. And cognitive traits. This is for Lucky Ward. His traits are disorganized thinking, emotional overload, and impulse-driven behavior. Now, we also know that Letitia Stouch has some impulse-driven behavior as well, but her mind is reacting to the moment. I mean, there's like reacting to the moment and not controlling it for Lucky. But then in hers, her cognitive traits are narrative construction, emotional masking, strategic thinking. And this is the mind managing perception, not losing control. So she always had control where Lucky had no control. So then we have to talk about how the brain interprets these things. And the brain reacts differently to each one. For Ward, his triggers were fear. For Stouch, her triggers are anger. So when you get into that cognitive explanation, fear is very unpredictable. Anger is very intentional. Okay. So that is the difference between those two. And the reason why I chose those two to talk about is because they're opposites, right? They both murdered, but they're opposites. And I think that I just thought that would be a great way to discuss this particular subject of cognitive psychology and how it relates to these two people. So, um, you know, uh, the mind, a person's mind, there's no two minds exactly the same. I mean, even if you're diagnosed with the exact same illness, your mind is still may not be exactly like the person sitting next to you that has the exact same illness, which I
No,
find
even if you're a
interesting.
twin, even if you're a twin,
Right,
they're not. You
right.
know?
I think that's kind of interesting, isn't it? So, so when you talk about cognitive explanation, we just talked about that fear and anger and unpredictable versus, there's unpredictable versus very intentional. Anger is intentional. We saw that with Letitia Stouch. She intentionally inflicted what she did to poor little Gannon Stouch. She basically took his life 3 different ways all at the same time. Where, Mr. Ward, I'm telling Mr. Ward, took the life of his victim uh, one way, suffocation, strangulation. Just strangle him. That's it. I mean, he didn't overkill. He didn't. It was more like he didn't mean to do it, but he did it. That's the way it kind of looked to me. So yeah.
Well,
Um.
Letitia had sheer hatred for Gannon
Oh
for
God, yes,
whatever reason.
absolutely.
For whatever reason, I still will never understand that until I take my last breath. But she hated that child. But then
You know
in
what
her
I
next
think it
breath,
was?
she's saying how helpful he is, and he would always take care of her if she was sick, and this and that. But it's like, how can you hate a child? What type of person does that make you? That makes you just an evil, evil human being. That makes you less of a human being.
It does. It's like well, you know what though? Isn't it wild how you can put Letitia Stouch and Gypsy Rose Blanchard in the same group?
Yeah.
Intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both of them intentional. So I always thought that was kind of interesting because you're going, well, they're like, well, maybe they're completely different. Not
And
really,
Lori
but like,
Vallow. And Lori
and
Vallow,
Lori
you
Vallow,
know?
Saints, Lori Vallow's the same
Yeah.
way. Absolutely, she sure is. I mean,
Yeah.
all of theirs was very intentional, and you can tell it was like, what's the word I want to use? Just out of anger, just out of
Yeah.
anger. Yeah,
And if you
all of them,
want
both
to
of them. Yeah.
group people together, Leilani, Casey
Yes,
Anthony.
yes, yes.
I don't know about the other one that killed her baby and left her in the shed underneath Her
Oh
dad's or her
God,
wife's.
her. Yeah.
What
Oh
was her name?
Lord.
I don't think, but I can't think of her name. But I don't
Right.
think
Right.
she's
Right.
grouped in that as well.
Yeah.
I want to say Eleanor, but that's not it.
That's not her name. Isn't it weird how we just watched this a few months ago? Well, it seems
But
like it was only a
but
few
you
months
know who
ago,
I'm
but it was
talking
actually
about.
further. Yeah. Yeah.
You know who I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Um. Damn it.
That's
What's her
gonna bug
name?
me.
Now it's bugging me too. But
I'm gonna see if I
um,
can Google it.
Google that for us while we talk about this. So we fear what we don't understand, but we punish what we believe is deliberate, right? I mean, well, we attempt to punish them. Look what's going on with Letitia Stouch. However, in that case and this reversal that's happened, because of the way the rules are written, there was no other choice but to reverse this and send it back for a new trial. That was the only cure that could happen because of a biased juror. It was just there's no other option. That's it. She gets the new trial, which out of all the people in the world, why her? Why her? It's disgusting,
Yeah,
just
I
disgusting.
know.
So, you know,
Um, I'm
when
gonna
you talk
find this
about
funny
these two,
thing.
let's talk about these two people though. We talked about Lucky Ward yesterday, and we saw his case. We watched the oral arguments and all of that, and you got to ask yourself, which one scares you more? Someone who can't control themselves or someone who can? That's what we're going to explore right now. So let's talk about that. Um, when you talk about we're going to explore. We're going to talk about that right now. But anyway, we can have a
Megan? Was it Megan?
Megan. Yeah, Megan. What's her name? Megan something.
Is that her name? I'm still Googling.
Okay, I don't remember. I don't remember the child's name.
Megan came to Megan came to Megan Boswell
Megan Boswell. There you go. It's Megan Boswell.
and
Okay, why
and
can't we
Evelyn Boswell. Yes.
hear that? Okay, now here we go. Let me get back over here to where I was. So we're going to talk about this right now. And so when you talk about this confession versus control, all right? Now we know that Ward confessed, but his mind just really didn't fully process of what was going to happen to him. Well, and he's just like Nick Godejohn, if you want to stop and talk about that. Nick Godejohn's the same way. He confessed, but he didn't really understand exactly what was going to happen to him. You could see that whenever we watch his video, and he's sitting there going, "I don't even know why I'm here. I was just going to go get her, right?" But look at Stouch though, and look at Lori Vallow, and look at the other ones. Um, she denies, but she controls every version of the story that she told. Every version she controlled it.
Yeah. Wade
There's
Wilson. That's another one. That's
Wade
another one.
Wilson. Oh, did you see the funny I made today? I made a
No.
Geppetto. Oh, I got to show it. So Gypsy Rose Blanchard finally got a ring put on it. She's the newest Wade wife. Let me show you.
Oh
Oh
shit.
my God. It's funny. Yes, I made this today. I had to put it out there because I was like, gosh, I'm proud of myself. Look how funny that is. Oh, wait a minute. Whoop, hang on. Stop. I don't know why that's there. So let me go over here and find it. Oh my goodness. Let's see. You're going to like this. Okay, let's go to shorts. Is it a short or is it a video? Here it is. All right, now I share my screen.
Yeah, and to
Okay, there it
call
is. Okay, now we'll let it play. Look at
oh
her.
god.
Surprise, surprise. Wade Wilson put the ring on it so Ken Urquhart doesn't have to. There you go, Geppetto. You got a ring on it.
Oh funny.
I couldn't help myself. I just had to do it. I was like, oh my God, look at this. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll get back to our discussion. One
Well,
of the
and two,
key concepts.
to call him, they called him a serial killer, which set up a narrative, and he was not a serial killer.
Oh God, no, no,
But
no,
that
no
set up
way
a
at all.
that set up a huge narrative with people when they started putting that all in the news and everything, because he was not a serial killer. He was not a
But
Ted
Lori
Bundy.
Vallow is.
He was not
Lori
a
Vallow
BK.
is a
Yeah,
serial
Laura
killer.
Vallow definitely is. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but he was not.
No, I mean, I can't wait to see what
And
the opinion is. I think it's all going to be overturned, to be honest with you, because when you compare, just like yesterday when we talked about it and they started comparing one crime to the other and then trying to pull in just because somebody else was strangled, that means he did it. Hell, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. That was so
well,
upsetting to watch that happen. Yeah.
and would I mean, and they were saying, that he was questioned or thought of for 6 other murders. Well, DNA is DNA, especially in this time. If he was
Right.
connected to those 6 other murders, there would have been DNA. There would have been something, and there's
Right.
nothing. So that shouldn't even have been brought up in the narrative either. That shouldn't even have been discussed.
It's like his rights were so violated by just such a terrible misjustice. And I hope that I hope it gets overturned, and I hope he just goes and gets mental help because he desperately needs mental help. He's one of those people that's like Nick that needs mental help, not being in a
Yeah,
prison for the rest of his life.
yeah.
So,
Well, and the fact
yeah,
that he wasn't even able to be there for half of the trial, what does that tell you? That I
that
mean,
tells me it was so improper. Yeah.
right.
Um,
I mean, they didn't. They deemed Lori and unable to stand trial, and she was nowhere near where this man was.
that's right.
Nowhere.
She wasn't.
So
Now,
why did it proceed on him? That just isn't right.
because you had a bungling mess of it started from the judge all the way down. I mean, there is no reason for it to take 10 years to go to trial for a murder.
Yeah,
No
because they were
reason at all.
grasping at straws, trying to find something to get him on. I mean,
I know,
granted, I think 5 years was due to COVID, but
right?
still, but still,
Yeah.
another 5 on top of that. Come on.
No, no. I hope he can find a lawyer to help him file a lawsuit because his rights were violated very much, and that you just in today's world you should never see this happen. I mean, the law is the law. I don't understand how they managed to skirt around it like that. I don't. It's horrible. So when the opinion comes out, of course, we're going to talk about that. But so let's talk about the key concepts of cognitive dissonance. I'm sorry, dissonance. It's dissonance. Now, Ward reduces chaos by admitting what he did, just like Yoda John. The way he got out of the chaos that he was feeling was he admitted what he had done, or he tried to admit it anyway. But Stouch, she reduces her exposure by controlling every narrative. Now, I was watching a new channel. I don't know if the channel's new or not today, but I found somebody that was playing the Letitia's trial, and she started on day one, and she's going through the trial like that. And her name is uh oh, damn it, I forgot something Cook. I'll think of it in just a minute. Something Cook. And let me just go pull it up over here. I'll tell you who I was watching. Let me see. Let me go back over here. Let's see. We'll go back over here because I enjoyed watching her today. Okay, her name is Debbie F. Cook. So if you've not went to see Debbie F. Cook's channel, please go check it out. I enjoyed watching her show today. As she's going back to the trial to rewatch the trial to get prepared for the new trial that's going to happen at some point. So yes, Debbie F. Cook. There you go. Anyway, so as Letitia Stouch over there, tried every way in the world to pull in some new narrative by adding some other little part. I mean, it is the most incredible garbage. I almost want to go pull it up right now myself and take a look at some of the things that she said because it's so appalling. I mean, it's just appalling.
It's
Um,
egregious. It's horrible.
Egregious. It is. I mean, here you've got perception versus confusion, right? Uh, Jurors aren't just when the jurors aren't just evaluating the evidence; they're actually reacting psychologically to what they're hearing, what they're seeing, what their feelings are. Even though it's not supposed to be about feelings, it's supposed to be about the law. But we know that sort of happens, with juries. I mean, in Ward's case, he had mixed evidence. He did. He had multiple allegations. And the brain response on that was, out of the jurors, in my opinion, and I believe your opinion too, a pattern of bias. Because the bias started with the prosecutor. So when the prosecutor introduces bias into the jurors, well, they kind of follow them. He must have done something, is the thought process.
Well,
Well,
suspecting somebody of something doesn't make them guilty of something.
exactly. It doesn't. It doesn't. Then we got the Stouch case. There was a clear timeline. The evidence was strong. The brain response for her was a certainty. And then there was the moral outrage of the whole thing, because we were morally outraged, and we still are morally outraged, and we will always be morally outraged by what Letitia Stouch did to that child. It will never make sense.
No.
The reason she did it, though, in my opinion, I wish this would go away, this little thing. I believe that the reason that she did it was because she absolutely knew that Al Stouch loved that child more than he would ever love her, and she couldn't stand it. So she just got rid of what was her competition.
Well, I think in her sick little mind, and I think that she felt like his death was gonna bring her and Al closer together. Because remember how after the fact she kept saying, well, we're going to move on. We're going to be a family. We're going to do this all together. And he's like, we can't be a family without Gannon. Like,
That's
no.
right. That's right.
I think she felt like that was going to, for some reason, some sick way, that was going to solidify their marriage. I don't know how you could even possibly think that, but.
Well, remember Al saying, well, we were a family of what, 6?
We were a family of 6.
We were a family of 5,
yeah.
or 5, however many. But now we're only a family of 4. How do you expect us to move on? We
Right,
have a person missing. And I understand what he's saying. I mean, and it's just like Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. They had, between the two of them, how many kids did they actually have? He had 5, she had 3. 2 of them are now gone. I don't understand how she ever thought that she was going to be able to walk this earth like nothing ever happened. But, when you're dealing with a sociopath, or a psychopath, whichever you want to call her, she clearly has delusions. She clearly has mental health problems. But I think, when you listen to Colby talk about his mother, he'll tell you that what he grew up with and what she was by the time she did this are 2 different people. He saw some of the things, but not to the extreme that she had turned into as soon as she met Chad Daybell. And you got to ask yourself, what about Chad Daybell caused her to believe all the garbage he was selling her?
Yeah, Colby said that she was a great mother when he was growing up.
And look at Chad Daybell and his children. Now look how his children started believing the garbage he was telling them. And well, one of them does it, but the rest of them still follow him as if he was.
Oh, and they stand behind him 100%. 100%.
Still trying to claim that their mother died of natural causes. No, she did not. Hell no, there's no way. This was a healthy woman.
No.
And from the way she was found, there's no way that she just died in her sleep. No. There was some kind of little struggle right there, and there was. It's just, it's mind-boggling. And I am trying to keep up with to see what is going to happen with the appeal that Chad Daybell has filed. I'm linked into the Idaho criminal courts system, so as soon as something pops up, I'm going to get the notice, which is exactly what I'm trying to do in all the appeals cases. As far as Texas, Idaho, all these big cases that we paid attention to, I'm trying to keep up with their appeals by, getting my name into the system. So when they pop up, I get the notice and we can go out and pull it right then. Instead of being shocked with when Sprinkle says, did you know so-and-so's appeal came out? I'm like, no, I did not. Yeah, so I don't want that to happen again, because I think it's important that we follow these things all the way through. Because it's not just about the crime they committed. It's not just about, okay, they had a trial, now they're in prison. Because we know there's always the possibility when they file an appeal that it can be reversed and they can walk out of that prison instead of staying in that prison. And that's the one thing we don't ever want to see happen, right? We don't want to see that happen, period. So, you know, let's
Well,
get back to our, okay,
what is his grounds for appeal? Because I mean, you pretty much have to have like ineffective assistance of counsel. I mean,
that was the hardest
there's
one to prove.
yeah, exactly. But that's also one of the major ones that you need in order to get an appeal, other than shit
I mean,
like Letitia came up with.
well, it's like his amendment, his Fifth Amendment, Fourth Amendment, all these rights were violated. That they always come back with these rights were violated because of this, that, and the other. I mean, I would have to go find that and pull it back up and
Yeah, I was just curious
and go
because I don't
through it. So I
remember
think I don't remember
ever
either.
heard his reason.
We do need to take a look at that, but and we will cover that as well. But you know, and I think because we're talking about his case and her case and how they also fit into
Okay,
this
here we go.
cognitive psychology. Go ahead.
Chad Dable is appealing his conviction and death sentence primarily by challenging a series of procedural and evidentiary rulings made by Judge Stephen Boyce. His legal team argues that these alleged errors unfairly influenced the jury's verdict and the final decision to impose the death penalty.
That's all it says.
That's all it says, yeah.
Okay.
Which doesn't sound like a whole bunch.
No, it doesn't. I mean, but like yesterday, I mean, gosh, Lucky Ward's appeal, I didn't realize it was 120 pages when I first started reading it. And I noticed, like, my God, 120 pages. We would be here all afternoon trying to read all 120 pages. So, anyway, so we're
yeah,
getting
but Lucky Ward just seems to be a black and white issue. Like, why isn't that just okay? Yep, I agree. Let's do this. I mean, I don't understand why
I don't either.
The decision is taking so long.
Well,
unless they're investigating certain officials and things of that nature, but I mean, that's a black and white issue.
Well, Letitia Stouches was a black and white issue as well because of a biased juror. I mean, because it clearly says if it's a biased juror, you have to reverse. Period. There's no argument about it. So, and it still took them a long time to write the opinions as well. But anyway, I mean, true. I don't know. I don't know why, but I think that we're going to hear about it fairly quick. I think we'll hear about it fairly quick because you're right. It is pretty much black and white what happened to him. And I could tell when we were watching the judges, the panel of judges, you could tell some of them were really irritated from what they were hearing because they were in shock too. You're talking about 10 years. What the hell are you talking about?
Right.
That's just unheard of. It's ridiculous, So anyway, we'll get back on what we're talking about. So in cognitive psychology, the real truth is absolutely this. Psychology doesn't just influence behavior, it influences the verdicts, and that's very true. And we know this because of the statements we just read that, well, they must have done something. There was this pattern of bias. They've done something. Or, well, the evidence was so strong, the timeline was completely clear. Well, it's in the moral outrage of it. So those things right there, it absolutely influences that verdict. Then you got to ask these. We're going to ask these questions right here about this. Control can be more dangerous than chaos. Confession doesn't always mean clarity. And jurors react before they analyze. And we know that absolutely happens. Even though they're given a set of instructions by a judge, and it says you have to follow the law per the charges in these instructions and nothing else. But see, they've already watched it and they formed opinions based on what they've seen. Even though they need to read this charge and follow this, they most of the time, by the time they go back there, they've already formed their own opinion about it. We know that. I mean, that's
of course they do.
That's a person's mind.
That's human nature. That's human nature.
Right. That's right. So, we have in these two people, we have two completely different defendants, two completely different minds. but it's the same justice system. So you got to ask yourself, which one deserves the harsher judgment? Is it going to be Lucky Ward, or is it going to be Letitia Stouch? So let's take a look. Hang on a minute. Let me go pull this up here. Oh, damn it. Stop this. Okay, hang on. My little machine's acting out. No, I don't want to see that. Stop it. No. It's trying to act like I want something. I don't want anything transcribed. I just want to look at these cases over here where we have actually, let me pull it up this way. I'm going to go here and pull this up this way. Y'all just have to bear with me for just a minute. My thing over here just wants to keep transcribing something that I don't really want. Okay. I mean, it's internal mental processes that influence your behavior, contrasting with behaviorism, which focused only on observable actions. It treats the mind as an informative processor, similar to a computer, analyzing how information is received, stored, processed, and then retrieved to guide the decisions and the actions. So what I'm going to find is, hang on, where's my mouse thing? Here we go. Let me go back over here. Okay. Hang on. Let me pull this up over here. Now, I'm going to pull something up that's a couple of years old. And it's on YouTube. And we're going to take a look at it for just a second. And it's called The Cognitive Psychologist. March 10th. Hang on. This is from March 10th of 2023. So this is going to be part 1. And it's going to discuss cognitive psych, what it is, what it isn't, etc. So let me go over here and change my screen. I'm going to share a screen. Oops. Let's go share a screen. I just thought you would find that so funny.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Okay. Okay, come on, share. Let's go. Oh no, we have to do it over here. I'm sorry, guys, I forgot. You can't use Bing. There's a weird thing that if you go out there and you use Bing like that, for some reason that considers a third party something, and that's not really true. So here we go. Here we go. Let's pull it up this way. Okay. Here we go. We'll use this one right here. All right, hang on. Now, let me get ready to go. This is from Archaeology. It's from Archaeology Academy, and we're going to listen to their version of it. Here we go. Is it? Oh, I didn't share the screen, stupid ass. All right, here we go.
Okay. We know better than what we do. Right. When we're born into this world, we're born into a family, into a unit. Now, granted that some people have
let's give full credit to where we need to give full credit. So, hang on, guys. I know, but we have to do it. I can't see it now. Whoops. Academy. Okay. I don't make typos, but I might. There we go. All right. Here's his name. And here we go. Come on, go. All right. Now, share that right there. Okay, and here we go.
More positive parental experience than others, all right? But when we're young, as we're children, our parents generally, I'm sure, I'd like to hope anyway, do their best to keep us safe from harm and guide us and steer us and direct us and will teach us the difference between right and wrong. They're going to set us up on a useful path in life. Some people are going to be saying, yep, that sounds like my parental experience. Others are going to be saying, my goodness, where'd you get parents like that from? We all have a different experience, some better, some worse. But here's the basic idea. If we're off a concrete authority mindset, what we're essentially assuming, especially when we're interacting with other people, is that other people are wiser than us, they're smarter than us, they have more authority than us. Authority within itself is just a perception. It's kind of like an abstract idea.
Stop
All right.
just a little bit.
Some people, for example, wait within their careers for years for a position, or someone who's in a position of authority to promote them or raise them up. All right. And all this within itself is just a perception, right? Getting promoted, getting raised up. People think that they're climbing up the food chain or climbing up the ladder of success. That's not what actually happens. There is no climbing up. There's just kind of sidestepping into different roles with different responsibilities and things like that. All right. So you might see me as some form of concrete authority. All right, because come on, I'm in front of you right now. I am teaching. I'm doing my best to articulate some of these concepts. And if you've bought into some of them, if I'm communicating in a way that makes sense, you might see me as the expert or the guru or as this concrete authority who knows best. And if you allow this perception to become established or rooted in your life, then what you're essentially setting yourself up to be is never as great as I, but just in your eyes. All right. Concrete authority comes with rules and from other wise and more mature people who know better than what we do. So we look up to people.
I forgot to do our fair use statement. We need to do that. I forgot. We've got to do that. If we don't do that, then we're just doing something wrong. So let me get my fair use statement pulled up. Here we go. Sorry guys, I know you're like, oh no, I was listening, but we have to do our fair use statement here. Disclosure. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, here we go. So this is our fair use disclaimer, and it's copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. This content is used for purposes such as commentary, criticism, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Any copyrighted material included is used as a transformative manner to provide analysis and public interest discussion. All rights belong to their respective owners. This content is not intended to infringe upon any copyrights. If you are a copyright owner and would like your material removed, please contact me directly instead of doing a strike, please. We're just trying to learn about cognitive psychology and how it's taught to us from a young age and our perception and how it falls into the legal world. So here we go. Okay.
People who we perceive as being in positions of authority. Right? Sometimes some people will do their best to associate with people who they perceive to be in positions of authority. Kind of like we think that if we, and this is really interesting. Okay, so I'm going to undermine some parts of the cognitive psychology industry here just a little bit. Right, so there's such a thing called accrediting organizations. You get certifying organizations, you get accrediting organizations who would sometimes work very hard into marketing themselves as being the ultimate authority. So you're going to have some organizations who define themselves as being the ultimate authority when it comes to cognitive behavioral therapy, right? That's kind of like saying that an organization, which is essentially within itself just an entity, which is made up of imperfect human beings, it's kind of like saying that an organization is the authority of what it means to be a human being, right? Which human being or which organization in the world would you say, just practically, has the authority of what it means to be human? Who has the final?
Hang on a second. Let's look at forensic psychology, we're going to switch. We're going to go to forensic psychology, to psychology.
Forensic psychology is a field that applies psychological principles.
Here we go. Hang on a minute. I just think that would be better because we are talking about criminals and forensics and things like that. We're not really talking about in the business world. So let's change that from this. We'll get rid of that, hide, and we'll go back over here to psychology exposed. Hang on just a minute, because I really want to talk about forensic psychology. I don't want to talk about the other psychology. So here we go. Let's go to full credit.
I think you can actually even do criminal psychology.
Well, that's what I put. I'll show you.
Criminal psychology focuses on understanding the thoughts, intentions, and actions of offenders driven by factors like antisocial personality disorder, trauma, and low self-control. Key traits include impulsivity, lack of empathy, and cognitive disorders often influenced by biological factors, reduced amygdala, which I don't know what that is, volume, and environmental factors like abuse or neglect.
With this one right here. Okay, here's
When people socialize with the wrong crowd, bad
here we
things
go. Then we're going to use differential association, and this is from Sprouts. Full credit to Sprouts, okay? Here we go, because this is about criminal right here. Let's do this. Okay. Did I spell that right? S-P-R-O-U-T-S.
You can go to the American
Weird name.
Psychological Association too, and Google pretty much whatever you want.
Damn it. There it is. Okay, I'm going to watch this one for a minute. Here we go. All right.
can happen.
It's talking about
They may form questionable values and develop poor attitudes toward law and order. And if their friends are criminals, they naturally learn from them and over time adopt their way of life. Psychologically, this process is known as differential association. Differential association theory is the work of Edwin Sutherland, who spent his life studying principles of criminology and found 9 distinct precepts. To learn how this works in real life, let's see how Robin, a shy 14-year-old boy, ends up in jail.
uh-oh.
Criminal behavior is learned. Robin learns it after meeting a new friend. It is learned through interaction and conversation with others, often supported by storytelling. This learning process takes place primarily in small and intimate groups. Books, video games, and mass media have little impact.
Okay.
The learning of criminal behavior includes sharing insights and techniques, as well as reasons.
Now we're going to stop for fair use because we have to stop and talk about it. You know that. We always have to do that. But, I mean, this is kind of an interesting little way to discuss it in a cartoon about how basically people learn to be criminals. Is this what they're telling us? So it's kind of weird. But we'll listen to it for a second. Here you go.
And attitudes that favor criminal actions. Motives are learned by dividing the legal system into good laws and bad laws. Robin learns that the laws protecting poor people's property are good, while the laws protecting rich people's property are bad.
What?
We
All
become
right. Now, wait a minute. Poor people's property versus rich people's property. What has that got to do with? Okay, hang on a second here. Okay, we're going to let it play on out. Let me see how long it is because, and then we're going to go to a different one because this is not very long. All right, we'll just let it play. Here we go. It's kind of strange, but okay.
delinquent once our rationale for breaking the law outweighs our rationale for respecting it. Robin steals once he believes that he needs to take from the rich to give to the poor.
Okay.
Our learning experiences vary in frequency, duration, the priority we give them, and how intense they are. Robin's time as a criminal is over when he and his friends all get arrested. Learning criminal behavior is like learning anything else. Robin learns this just like his sister learns math. The same mechanisms are involved. Although criminal behavior is an expression of one's needs and values, it is not explained by them. Non-criminal behavior can also stem from the exact same needs and values.
Now that's very strange. How can criminal and non-criminal come from the same values? Think about that statement they just made. That's very strange. Okay, we'll let it play through.
Edwin Sutherland was an American sociologist whose work had a big impact on criminal policy. His theory recognizes that criminal attitudes can be learned socially. Consequently, they can also be unlearned. In other words, Sutherland helped us understand that kids like Robin can be rehabilitated.
But can they? Can they? All right, listen, we don't like that one. Let's just go to a different one because we really don't like that one right there. It's not really what we want to know. What we really want to know is the psychological theories of crime and talent. Okay, what about this one? Let's watch this one instead. And this one is from Dr. B. Sully, A Crime, Law, and Justice. Here we go. Well, this one's
Trait theory
more
center
like
around the
what we
view
want.
that criminality is a product of abnormal.
Okay, so let me do full credit to this guy. What's his name? Hi. To Dr. B. Sully, right? Okay, hang on just a second. Now, this is more what we want to look for. Okay, enter. All right, here we go. Show. All right. Now, Here we go.
biological or psychological traits. We looked at biological theories last week. This week we cover psychological theories. The main areas we'll look at are intelligence, personality, cognitive development, and learning, which we'll cover next week. Let's begin right off the bat with the most controversial, intelligence. Does intelligence predict crime? And more specifically, low intelligence. This idea of an intelligence-crime link has been around for a long time and is tied closely to the nature-nurture debate. As we discussed at length last week with biological theories, this originated largely due to beliefs of racial and ethnic inferiority, including prejudice against blacks specifically, and a strong anti-immigrant sentiment in the U.S. in the late 1800s and early 1900s. It was tied to the belief that blacks and immigrants, particularly those coming from Ireland, Italy, and Germany at the time, were feeble-minded, had lower intelligence, were weak, and more likely to be criminal, therefore not suitable for society. This nature theory argues that intelligence is largely determined genetically. Low intelligence leads to criminality. On the flip side,
All right, let's stop. Okay, stop. Let's think about what he just said. Lower intelligence leads to criminality. I don't know that that's true. Now, I understand he's a doctor, blah, blah, blah. But let's look at it this way.
Well, it may go on to it may be just like a precursor to childhood trauma, things that are associated with, did they say low income? Is that what he said? I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought.
Yeah, he's talking about lower intelligence and the lower income.
Oh, lower intelligence. Well, if you have a child that doesn't go to school, their intelligence is going to be lower. You're going to have, in those type of situations where they don't send their kids to school, there's often drug abuse, there's often physical abuse, mental abuse, all those factors that will contribute to someone becoming a killer. So maybe that's just like the beginning of it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But see, that claim of lower intelligence leads to criminality is too simplistic, and it's
That's too broad. That's too broad. Yeah.
So, in fields like criminology and psychology, some studies do find that small statistical correlations between lower average IQ scores and certain types of offending. But the correlation does not equal the cause. The effect is modest, not deterministic. It varies widely by context and type of crime. So what actually matters more is, research consistently shows stronger links to poverty and economic stress, childhood environment such as abuse, neglect, and instability, education access, substance abuse, peer influences, and impulse control or decision-making skills. So let's talk about intelligence versus behavior. Even when intelligence plays a role, it usually is indirect. Lower cognitive skills can affect school success, problem solving, and risk assessment. So, but outcomes depend heavily on your environment, your support, and the opportunities afforded to you. So why the statement is risky? Saying that low intelligence leads to a crime, that's overgeneralizing, can stigmatize groups, ignore social and systematic factors. So the bottom line on that little statement is, intelligence is one minor factor among many, not a cause of criminality. Crime is better explained by a mix of social, psychological, and economic conditions. Okay, so what he's saying there is not really what not what I believe. Is this, and I'm sure you don't believe what he just said either, do you?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so we'll keep going for a minute. Okay, so he goes next to, what does he say next? All right.
the nurture theory argues that intelligence is not inherited, but is largely a product of the environment. Low intelligence does not itself cause crime, but instead may result from the same environmental factors that do cause crime. Intelligence is assessed using what is known as an intelligence quotient, or IQ test. Many intelligence studies were conducted on populations of known offenders in the early 1900s, identifying a link between IQ and crime. However, criminologist Edwin Sutherland, who we'll talk more about next week, evaluated these early studies on the IQ-crime link in 1931 by comparing the IQ scores among the offenders tested with those of Army draftees, who were considered representative of the general population.
Now, okay, we're fixing to disagree with him again, and I'm going to tell you why. The statement that intelligence is not inherited is not accurate. But it's also not completely wrong either. The reality is more nuanced, right? What science actually says and feels like behavioral genetics and cognitive psychology Intelligence is partly inherited and partly shaped by the environment. The genetic side. Studies, including twin studies, show heritability of intelligence is roughly 40 to 80%, depending on age and conditions. This means that genes influence potential for intelligence, but they do not determine the outcome on their own. Okay. Then there's the environmental side. Things that strongly affect intelligence is early childhood environments, education quality, nutrition is very important, stress and trauma, and social interaction and stimulations. So a person can have a strong genetic potential but not reach it without proper support and or improve significantly with right environments. So how are we going to think about that? Well, a good way to frame that is genetics sets a range. Environmental determination where you land is in that range. So I think it's a common misconception that you're either born with smart or you're not. I think that is wrong, right? But what he's saying is not exactly right either. So, I mean, it's not purely inherited, it's not purely environmental. It's actually a combination of both. That's what I think. What do you think, Sprinkle?
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So far what we're finding is this guy's very biased himself. Here we go.
Population and found them to be virtually identical. He also identified inconsistent application of IQ tests. Many different tests have been developed over the years, and a lack of standardization has been a problem historically, and poor methodologies in the studies. Therefore, he dismissed the idea of an IQ crime link, which became widely accepted in criminology for decades. This debate was reignited, though, in the late 1970s when criminologists Travis Hershey and Michael Hindelang suggested IQ is at least as important in predicting crime as socioeconomic status. They proposed that low IQ in juveniles caused poor performance in school, which was linked with decreased opportunities and therefore was related to both juvenile delinquency and criminality as an adult. The most controversial.
Now we have to disagree with him on this topic as well. I just have to disagree with him on this. So far, we're just striking out, aren't we? Because the claim that IQ tests are not standardized is incorrect. What standardized actually means is the psychometrics, a standardized test, is the one that is given the same way to everyone. It's scored using the same rules, and it's compared against a norm group, which is a large sample of the population. IQ tests are specifically designed to meet these standards, so they are standardized. Examples of a standardized IQ test. Widely used tests include the Welsher Adult Intelligence Scale and the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scales. Now, and I don't know, like my child was given the Stanford Binet when he was in elementary school. So anyway, we'll just keep going. But these are carefully normed on thousands of people, regularly updated to reflect population changes. The confusion comes from this. People say not standardized because they're not perfect. A cultural bias, there's that word again, can affect the results. Test conditions matter, fatigue, stress, etc. Scores can change because of education and environment influence and performance. Practice effects can raise your score. So if you practice this test over and over and then you go take it, you're going to ace it. But if you sit down and take it one time and you never take it again, your score is what your score is. So not standardized is wrong. Standardized but imperfect is accurate. So that's where I stand with that. What do you think, Sprinkle?
No, I agree. I mean, I agree with you. I don't agree with him.
There's no way you can say that, right?
No,
Gosh,
no.
we're just striking out here now. Let's see what else he has to say.
Controversial publication in this area undoubtedly was The Bell Curve, written by Richard Herrnstein and Charles Murray in 1994. They argued that the outcomes for youth who were at risk for crime were largely determined by their intelligence. Low IQ youth are more likely to commit crime, get caught, sent to prison, whereas high IQ youth are protected by their higher intelligence, allowing them to succeed in school and build key social relationships to avoid criminal behavior. Even more controversial were explicit connections made between intelligence and race, along with policy recommendations such as cutting off social assistance from women with low IQs to discourage them from having children and reducing immigration from poorer countries, primarily those with
Okay, we have to stop him right there. Boy, what a thing to say. Now, let's talk about
How old is this article? How old is this article?
5 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's only 5 years old, and I'm thinking, what in the
Oh,
world?
wow.
Yeah.
That-
So let's talk
That's
about the bell
surprising.
curve and the IQ. IQ scores are designed to follow a bell curve. Average IQ is about 100. Okay. Most people fall between 85 and 115. A very high IQ would be 130, and a very low scores are rare. This is based on standardization, not coincidences. So, the 68 to 95 to 99.7 rule. In a normal distribution, 68% fall within one standard deviation, 95% within two, and 99.7 within three. That's why extremes are uncommon. Here's what's important. Not everything in real life perfectly follows a bell curve. Income distribution is skewed and not symmetrical. Crime rates are clustered, not evenly spread. And that would be because of where the populations are. Test scores sometimes, check, but not always. Here's the common misconception. People misuse the bell curve to argue things like intelligence differences between groups, behavior predictions. Now, this is where it becomes controversial and often misapplied. The bottom line is the bell curve is a statistical model, not a rule of life. It's useful for IQ, height, some test scores, but not everything fits in it, and it can be misused in arguments. So he's wrong. We don't agree with him there either. And why in the world would you take away financial help to a woman just because she had a lower IQ? Does that make it? That's what he said. He just said that.
Yeah.
But God Almighty, let me see. This is from. Hang on a second. 14,000 views 5 years ago. All right, well, let's keep going and see what else he's got to say.
Mostly non-white populations, because their lower intelligence made them unlikely to succeed in the US. The book was widely read, heavily influenced views on race, intelligence, and criminality, including public policy, received widespread backlash from the scientific community, and, needless to say, remains highly controversial to this day, as does the IQ crime link in general. There are several notable criticisms worth highlighting. One was just covered, that is basically a cover for racial and ethnic prejudice, and at worst, a throwback to social engineering of eugenics. To this point, IQ tests have also been criticized for being ethnocentric, created by scientists in Western culture to assess individuals in that culture. Poor performance on these tests by those from non-Western cultures should then be expected, just as individuals in Western cultures would be expected to perform poorer on IQ tests developed in non-Western cultures. Instead, though, it was long concluded that the results were due to poor intelligence rather than a poorly conceived, culturally biased testing instrument. Another criticism is that intelligence does not explain changes and patterns in crime. Individuals tend to age out of crime as they get older. Can this be explained just by getting smarter over time? Of course.
Now, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm going to disagree with that one too, because I don't believe that people age out of crime. That's kind of like
No, I don't understand that either. That doesn't make sense.
right. So let's look at it. Age out of criminality. Let's see what it has to say about that. Okay, hang on a minute. There we go. Let's see what it has to say. Come on. Well, now, is it going to go? Don't do that. Okay, I forgot to put a word in. Okay, now let's go. It doesn't want to give me the answer. Let's see. Well, I'm going to look at it from over here then. That's just, okay, so let's look at it over here. Okay, we'll get out of that. Aging out of criminality. Because, I mean, there are people who commit crimes their entire life. Some people do it because they want to. Not because they have to. They just enjoy doing it.
You don't really have any teenage serial killers. Most serial killers are middle age. They're not teens.
True. So when you speak
in
about
that case,
aging,
you wouldn't have so many killers in 30 and above. I mean, of course you have some that are younger, but the majority of them are older, so that doesn't make sense at all.
So it says aging out of a crime or desistance is a well-established criminological fact behavior peaks in late adolescency or early adulthood, like ages 18 to 21, and declines sharply thereafter. Most individuals stop offending by their mid-20s to early 30s due to brain development. Okay, I see where they're going with this. Changing your priorities or social ties such as employment or family. Here's the key aspects of aging out of crime. The age and the crime curve. This graph shows that while some adolescents commit serious crimes, the majority desist and they just reach their mid-20s, showing a spontaneous remission, like they're just not interested in that anymore. The reasons for it is brain development. The brain's preferential cortex, responsible for impulse control and risk assessment, matures in your mid-20s. Then you have your social bonds. Key life changes or turning points like marriage, employment, or military service provide stability and a stake in conformity. Reduced peer influence. Adolescents are highly susceptible to peer pressure, which diminishes with age. Recidivism rates. The likelihood of reoffending drops dramatically with age. Federal data shows that 53% rearrested rates for offenders released before the age of 30 compared to 11.3% for those 60 or older. Okay. Exceptions and trends. While the patterns hold, some data suggests that property criminals may stop in their 20s, whereas violent criminals might continue into their 30s. Furthermore, recent trends show a slight increase in criminal behavior among those over 50, your Chad Daybells, your Lori Daybells, all right? The impact on the justice policy. This concept suggests that long prison sentences for teenagers and young adults may be unnecessary, as they would likely stop offending on their own. Research such as that is the Annie E. Casey Foundation indicates that focusing on rehabilitation for emerging adults aligns with this natural development. So let's talk about that for just a second. I believe that, well, I mean, yeah, that's probably right. You know, think about that.
It says here the average age of homicide offenders in the U.S. is approximately 28.8 years, according to the FBI crime report data. While the average age for all murderers is in their late 20s, the average age of serial killers is often slightly higher, frequently starting their crimes in the mid-20s or early 30s. Research shows a high proportion of serial killers begin their activities around their 20th or 30th birthday. The average age of homicide victims in the U.S. has fluctuated, trending between 31 and 36 years old in recent decades.
That's kind of weird, isn't it?
Studies have shown that.
Hello? Are you there?
I'm sorry, my mic went off. Studies have shown that 90% of all serial killers in the U.S. are male, and a significant portion are white.
Wow. I wonder why. You know, that's a very good question. Why would it be? Why are there more white serial killers than others, than other groups? What makes that happen? Is it because they think they're not going to get caught, where the other groups feel like they will get caught, or is it? I mean, they think they're smarter. I mean, what is it that makes it happen that way? That's something I would like to know.
Let's see what it says.
Okay.
Excuse me. In 2024, 41 to 45% of identified homicide offenders were white. Most homicide in the U.S. are interracial, meaning people are most likely killed by members of their own race. Roughly 80 to 82% of white victims are killed by white offenders. 89 to 90% of black victims are killed by black offenders. While white individuals make up the largest racial group in the U.S., they are often underrepresented in total homicide arrests relative to their population size.
So that's saying that even though the white is more, that there would be more whites than there would be blacks, there because of population size, there just seems to be more blacks than whites, right?
Yeah, that there's
just
more
because.
whites than blacks. Yeah.
Right.
And it says, however, a closer look at national crime data reveals that homicide is a complex issue driven more by socioeconomic factors and proximity than by race alone.
Okay. Okay, so like if you're living in, let's say you're living in the Bronx of New York versus you're living in Harlem, right? You know, which group is going to have a larger amount of homicides?
Mm-hmm.
That's something I would like to know. So,
And I never thought about the most homicide victims that are white being killed by white people and most homicide victims that are black being killed by black people. I never thought of that. It says total numbers in 2023 reported approximately 8,842 white offenders and 6,405 black offenders. Because white people make up about 59% of the U.S. population, they are statistically underrepresented in the total homicide arrests.
okay. So I'm looking this up over here. I'm making this comparison, the Bronx versus Harlem. In which area would you have more homicides, the Bronx or Harlem? So I'm trying to pull this up over here if it's just thinking slow. Oh, come on, you piece of crap. It's moving extremely slow. I might have to change to a different. Here we go. Okay, well, it doesn't want to answer me. Okay, well, let's go over here. We'll put it up this way. So, the Bronx versus Harlem. Which area has the most homicides? There you go.
What's funny, it says research suggests that only 10% of the total homicides in the U.S. are committed by individuals with conditions like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. 10%.
Okay. Listen to this. The Bronx, this shocks me. The Bronx generally records a higher volume of homicides compared to Harlem, largely because the Bronx is a much larger geographic area with a higher overall population. However, East Harlem often reports a higher per capita of violent crime rate than many specific neighborhoods in the South Bronx. Neighborhood crime comparisons. While the Bronx as a whole is frequently identified as the borough with the highest violent crime rate in New York as of 2025 and 2026, specific hotspots in both areas show intense activity. The Bronx borough, the volume, typically has the highest per capita violent crime rates among the 5 boroughs. High-risk areas. Neighborhoods like the South Bronx, including Mott Haven and Hunts Point, Fordham, and Tremont, are consistently ranked among the city's most dangerous due to high rates of violent felonies. Here's the trends. Recent data from early 2026 indicates that while total incidents in Brooklyn may be higher, the Bronx remains the most dangerous per capita in the rates. And then you have Harlem. Specific rates, East Harlem is frequently cited with a violent crime rate that exceeds many other parts of the city, including some high-risk areas of the Bronx. Context, crime in Harlem is often linked to illicit activities like drug trafficking and robbery, while central and western parts of Harlem have seen significant gentrification. Okay, East Harlem remains a focal point for the violent crime statistics in Manhattan. Okay, because of gentrification, they're saying, well, there's less crime. Okay, and that kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense to me because when you gentrification, you'll see that a lot in like some of the cities here. When you talk about what they're doing is they're going into these areas and they're reshaping them. They're tearing down these old houses and they're building these new houses. And I mean, so you might have a brand new house right in the middle of homes that are 200 or 300 years old. That's called gentrification, and it changes the neighborhood. It's now changing the neighborhoods. So we'll keep listening to this guy and let's see if we can argue with him some more. This is kind of interesting stuff. It we go.
As we've previously discussed, this applies only to street crime. Are those who commit white-collar and corporate crime of lower intelligence too? Certainly, many of these crimes require at least some level of higher intelligence to pull off. What about ecological crime patterns? Does intelligence fluctuate based on the weather, time of year, time of day, and geographic
that's a good
location?
one.
And finally, self-report studies consistently find that the vast majority, upwards of 90% of juveniles, commit some type of criminal offense at some point. Do all of these youths have low IQs? Or is it just those who are caught? Which, if so, comes with its own set of implications. So that's just a general overview of the intelligence crime debate, some of its criticisms and controversies. Moving on, let's now turn to personality, emotional or behavioral attributes that distinguish one person from another that are reasonably stable or constant over different situations and scenarios. One of the more well-known personality theories was proposed in the mid-20th century by Hans Eysenck, who argued personality is a function of arousal levels based in the central nervous system, which impacts the individual's ability to adapt to the environment. The two main dimensions are on continuums between neuroticism and stability and extroversion and introversion. Neuroticism stability is how individuals respond emotionally to what happens in the environment. Is the individual more easily anxious or upset by environmental stressors, or calmer and more collected? Extroversion introversion is a level of preference for external stimulation. Extroverts are more outgoing and energetic. Introverts are more reserved, keep to themselves. Those who are more on the extreme ends of either extroversion or introversion, while also being highly neurotic, are thought to be more prone to criminal behavior.
Okay.
These ideas were
Let's
later
talk about this
adapted.
for a second. So, if you're neurotic, you're more prone to criminal behavior. So that kind of, well, first we're going to talk about how does the weather relate to criminal behavior. So I thought that was an interesting topic. Relationship between bad weather and crime is complex. While overall street crime often decreases during inclement weather, specific types of offenses like domestic violence and burglary frequently see an uptick. The decrease in street crimes comes because of the public spaces such as muggings, open air, drug deals, and gang-related violence typically drop during rain or snow because fewer people, both victims and offenders are outside. Increases indoor crimes, incidents of domestic disputes, assault, and child abuse often rise when families are confined indoors for extended periods due to poor weather, often referred to as a cabin fever. The increase in burglary and theft. Burglars may use the cover of rain or storms to break into homes or businesses unnoticed, taking advantage of reduced foot traffic and the noise of the weather to mask their entries. Traffic and DUI arrest. Slick roads and low visibility lead to more car accidents, which can be subsequently result in a higher volume of DUIs. I think that's interesting, don't you? So let's talk about neurotics and crime. Okay.
I actually Googled people with psychological issues becoming killers. And
Yeah.
it says for most individuals, a psychological issue is not a direct pathway to becoming a killer. Statistically, people with serious mental illness are 10 times more likely to be a victim of violence than a perpetrator.
That's interesting.
When psychological issues do not intersect with homicide, it is typically through a combination of severe, untreated symptoms and high-risk environmental factors. Personality disorders, the most common diagnosis among killers, especially serial offenders, as antisocial personality disorder, characterized by a lack of empathy, impulsivity, and disregard for the law, may affect up to 47% of male inmates. Psychotic symptoms, while only 10% of total homicides involve serious mental illness like schizophrenia, specific symptoms increase the risk.
That's interesting, isn't it? Now, he's going to talk about neuroticism over here. In criminology, neuroticism is a personality trait characterized by emotional instability, anxiety, and a tendency to experience negative emotions like anger or guilt. High scores in neuroticism are consistently linked to both initial criminal offendings and higher rates of recidivism. How neuroticism influences your criminal behavior. According to Hans Eysenck, which, if you'll notice, this is the Eysenck's. This is Eysenck's right here. It says its biosocial theory of crime. Individuals with high neuroticism have an easily triggered automatic nervous system, making them more reactive to stress and prone to impulse emotional outbursts. Emotional recidivity. High neuroticism can cause emotions to override reason, potentially leading to aggressive and irrational criminal acts. Letitia Stouch. Recidivism risk studies found that offenders scoring high in neuroticism, especially in facets like angry, hostility, and impulsivity, are more likely to reoffend. The type of crime of high neuroticism is positively associated with violent crimes, drug-related offenses, and antisocial behavior. Here's the age factor. Age factor. While traits like extroversions and more prominent in younger offenders, neuroticism is more strongly correlated with criminal behavior in adult populations. So now we're going to let him talk about this. And so isn't that weird that this talks about this one scale right here, and this is exactly what he's got. Here we go.
By several other psychologists over the years into what became known as the Big Five personality traits, which, in addition to neuroticism and extroversion, also include openness to new ideas, experiences, and adventures, agreeableness, cooperating with and doing things for others, and conscientiousness, preparing, paying attention, staying on task. Different variations on these traits have been associated with antisocial behavior. Antisocial being a general term indicating a lack of consideration for how our actions impact others, as well as aggression, which are also linked with criminal behavior. Another personality theory linked to criminal behavior is Robert Hare's psychopathy checklist, originally developed in the 1970s and adapted several times in the years since. Some of the common traits of psychopathy include a lack of empathy, lack of guilt or remorse for harming others, insincerity, pathological lying, superficial charm, egotistical and narcissistic, grandiose sense of self-worth, superficial intelligence, thinking you're smarter than everyone else, impulsive and irresponsible, and even a lowered response to pain and fear. The combination of these traits is thought to make a person more prone to criminal behavior, particularly violence. Indeed, high scores on this checklist have been disproportionately found among prisoners and also among corporate executives, which is one of the many explanatory factors for white-collar and corporate crime. However, psychopathy...
Okay, hang on a second. Because who did he just describe? Who did he just describe right there?
Freaking Letitia.
Lori Vallow.
Or Lori, sorry.
I think he described Lori Vallow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I had Letitia up on my computer. Sorry.
Yeah. That Grandy, I mean, you know, that was right there. Lori Vallow is who he just
The
described.
grandiosity. Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's see who's he gonna describe with this next bunch. Here we go.
Psychopathy has been criticized for being too closely tied to criminality, essentially identifying common traits found among criminals and using them to describe something else, a psychopath, essentially resulting in a tautology, rendering it with little applicable value. It's also important to note that psychopathy is not a designated mental disorder according to the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and there is a great deal of confusion among laypersons and professionals alike between psychopathy and sociopathy, the inability to empathize with other people, and antisocial personality disorder, which is in the DSM and is more commonly used today. This isn't something we're going to spend a great deal of time digging into here, but is something you should be aware of. This leads us to other mental disorders and illnesses that have been linked with criminal behavior: schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, mood disorders, conduct disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, which was mentioned last week, among others. While we can identify these disorders, it's difficult to assess their origins. Are they genetic? Are they the result of trauma, physical trauma to the brain, or a traumatic childhood and upbringing? In other words, is it ultimately learned behavior such as an abusive home? And they correspond with other problems: a lack of financial resources, use of substances as self-medication, and difficulty with social interactions. All of this makes it more likely that a person with a mental disorder will be arrested, as they may seem like a potential danger to themselves or others when they may not be. There is certainly a lack of police training on how to appropriately handle someone going through a mental health crisis. This gives a distorted impression that those with mental disorders are more likely to be criminal, and it's important to know.
Now, see, that's an interesting statement, isn't it? Mental disorders are more likely to be criminal.
Yeah,
That's the
and
statement
see,
you
and
just
what I
made.
just read, and so what I just read was opposite. It says that they're most likely to be a victim.
That's amazing, isn't it? So we got to decide: do we feel like that they're more likely to be the victim, not the perpetrator? Or is it equal among them that 50% would be the perpetrator and 50% would be the victim? And yeah, the police are not really trained to deal with somebody that's having a mental issue. You know, they get into these homes or what, they're going to go arrest somebody or whatever's happened. They don't know how to deal with this. They're not sure if the person is being honest with them or if they're just playing them. They don't really know. and they're not trained in it. And so I think that sometimes mistakes happen when they're dealing with these people because they're not trained in it. It's kind of an interesting situation right here about is it social problems? Is it something they're taught? Are they born with it? Well, let's just talk about ADHD for a minute. Let's talk about that, 'cause that's a big one over here.
Well, and they
Are we
say
born
like
with
people that actually have a psychotic break and they do
Uh-huh.
commit a violent crime, that afterward they're so remorseful that they're just beyond remorseful in what happened. So it's not like they just have this mental illness and go randomly killing people. That's not really how it seems to happen.
Well, Letitia South just said have a psychotic break. No, she
She
did
didn't
not.
have a psychotic break.
They're all
Psychotic break
trying to
means
say,
you have a loss of reality, you have disorganized thinking, your actions are chaotic and unplanned, a crime scene is disorganized, they don't
right?
attempt to hide the evidence, it's just complete chaos. It's like a moment of chaos happened. She was so manipulative and sneaky, she did not have a psychotic break. No.
Well, you know who else had a psychotic break? Supposedly Lindsay Clancy. Now, she's the one that sent
That,
her husband to
yeah.
Walgreens and then went downstairs and killed all the kids. And then jumped
Well,
out the
I
window
think
herself.
right. And I think that I don't know. I think hers was a lot of drug induced and not taking her proper medication and taking stuff that she shouldn't have taken. And a big thing about psychotic break that is true is that their internal logic is very skewed, where they think that the victim was a demon. Remember how
Oh,
Letitia was
yes.
trying to say that he was in the cape, and that was her just trying to
Oh,
play
God.
that part. But
Right.
that's one of the big parts of a psychotic break that she played up on, and that's not what happened. That's not what happened.
Right. I don't think so either. She's just pure
Because
evil.
she sent Harley to the store to clean up, to get stuff to clean up
Clean up.
afterward. There was no psychotic break.
No.
That was
Because
planned.
had,
All her stupid stuff in the morning about getting him in the car and driving him around and all that was all planned. That was not a psychotic break.
but I don't know why she drove him around. I mean, I kind of feel like, and I know we're never going to know the truth. I know that. But I think she set the fire thinking that this was going to take care of it. However, the carpet was, burn resistant.
Anti-inflammatory or whatever.
Right. So
Yeah.
it just kind of melts. There was no fire that actually started, actually. And so then she had to go to plan B because she, in an accident in a fire is very different than, oh, I shot him with a gun. Right. I think that's what the whole plan was. Because she got him out of the house last.
I often wonder if she had set that fire up to become the hero in saving Gannon, and then shit went awry. Like Gannon said, I'm going to tell my dad that you lit this fire. I think something happened after the fact that blew her plan, because I don't know that she wanted to kill him at that point, but I think I've always thought she wanted to be the hero to Al. I ran in, I saved him, I saved his life. That, she saved the golden child. And then
think about this, though. She absolutely tried to play hero because I took care of the kids, blah, blah, blah. Landon didn't take care of those kids. I paid for this, I paid for that. We did, all of these things that like a hero would do instead of we did it together. She acted like she did everything and Al did nothing for his kids, right? So that could be part of it, when it comes to Letitia Stouch's crimes.
Yeah, and I think it all went downhill where, like when she was talking about the couch, the lady tell the lady it was an accident so she doesn't throw us out. I think all of that was all mixed in with her story coming out, that something transpired between her and Gannon at that point where he was like, I'm going to tell my mom, I'm going to tell my dad, I'm going to tell my grandma.
Right.
That you did this, and I think that led to her killing him, because at that point her whole plan was just falling apart. So if he's dead, then nobody can tell on her.
That's exactly
Because
right.
something happened to where she turned on him. Because I mean, she was nasty to him. She never took care of those kids properly. She was
Oh, no.
nasty to his sister. But there was something that happened that was like her straw. Something happened where he was going to tell somebody something about her, and she didn't want it to get out, so she killed him. That's just my
Well, you know,
that's just my opinion.
right now you remember, because I caught on, I remembered, well, today I was watching this on that other channel, and one of the things that came across that I did not remember was the fact that Al talked about how she would all of a sudden have money. He didn't know where she got it from because she never really worked. Well, that comes back to her and her sister were selling stolen stuff on Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think Al realized that her sister was mailing her all this stuff that was stolen, and then she was selling it. And I guess, I don't know if she's splitting the money with her or not. But see, I mean, she always had a criminal mind. Always.
Oh, yeah. Always.
You know.
I mean, look
So,
at the shit she did when she was younger.
oh, true. Yeah. You know. Okay, so before we got off on that tangent, we were talking about, attention deficit. Is it something you're born with, or is it something that happens from a childhood situation? So, yes, ADHD is primarily a neurodevelopment disorder that you are born with. While visible behavior symptoms often don't appear until early childhood, typically between ages 3 and 7, the underlying brain differences are present from birth. So the role of genetics has something to do with attention deficit. The high heritability of ADHD is estimated to be 77 to 91% is inherited, meaning genes play a massive role in its development. Family links. If a parent or sibling has ADHD, a child is significantly more likely to have it too. The brain differences. A brain with ADHD often shows structural and functional differences from birth, particularly areas like the prefrontal cortex, which handles impulse control and focus. So, yes, I know where my son got it from. It's okay. God almighty. Anyway, so we'll just keep listening to this guy. Jeez.
Note that the vast majority of individuals with these disorders do not engage in crime. Those who suffer from mental illness are much more likely to be the victim of crime rather than the perpetrator. Now, let's rewind a bit and look at another set of explanations for personality that will also lead into theories of cognitive development: psychodynamic theories. Psychodynamics set the early foundation for psychological theories, originating in the late 1800s to early 1900s with the work of Sigmund Freud. His original psychodynamic theory was psychoanalysis, which was used as a way to treat mental illness, but also as a way to explain human behavior by going all the way back to how elements of personality developed in early childhood. He argued we are driven by our unconscious drives and desires, and that elements of our personality develop as a way to restrict or rein them in. According to Freud, there are three parts of the mind: the conscious, the preconscious, and the unconscious. The conscious is what we're currently aware of and actively thinking about: our present thoughts, perceptions, feelings, memories, and fantasies. Preconscious is our available memory, information that is quickly accessible, such as a birth date. We can easily bring it forward, but it's not always actively in our thoughts. The unconscious is the largest part of the mind that we are largely unaware of and cannot readily be accessed by the conscious mind: our drives, desires, motivations, instincts, traumas, stresses. It is the thought processes, memory, and motivation that occur automatically without our knowing: traumatic and painful repressed memories and emotions, socially unacceptable ideas and desires. When you have a natural reaction to something that you immediately suppress and can't really figure out why it came up in the first place, that's the unconscious. Freud also identified different components of an individual's personality, known as the id, ego, and superego. The id is instinct, instinctual drives, impulses, desires. It is the largest component present in all of us at birth that wants immediate satisfaction. It is the pure pleasure principle. I want it and I want it now. The ego is reality, or what we come to accept as reality. It is the face we put on for the rest of the world, corresponding most closely with the conscious part of the mind. Ego is concerned with the rational pursuit of pleasure, finding the easiest path to fulfillment. It begins to emerge at around the age of 2 as a check on the id. The superego is the ethical, moral center of the brain. The conscience tells us what to do, what not to do. The internalization of punishment, reward, warning, shame, guilt, and pride. The id and superego create constant tension in our lives, which is balanced out by the ego. Behavioral problems arise when there is an imbalance in components of the personality, namely among the ego or superego. The id was not the problem. It was considered a constant, always there, it is what it is, never too strong or too weak. But an underdeveloped superego, for instance, won't be able to suppress the id, meaning rewards and punishments associated with appropriate behavior won't be internalized, and empathy and guilt won't be established. On the flip side, an overdeveloped superego may lead to an excess of conscience, like constant feelings of guilt and anxiety, a latent need or desire to be caught and punished for doing something wrong.
We're going to talk about that for just a moment. So, underdeveloped superegos. Now, to me, it sounds like he's talking about that would be your sociopaths or psychopaths. And your overdeveloped sounds to me like that would be your depressed people. I mean, you stop and think about what he said, you know.
Yeah.
The psychodynamics of psychological perspective that views human behavior as the product of an interaction between conscious and unconscious forces, many of which are rooted in childhood experiences. Originally developed by Sigmund Freud, the field has evolved but remains centered on the idea that our inner world, our hidden desires, fears, and memories shapes how we act and feel today. So, the core principle of psychodynamics, and he just talked about that, the unconscious mind, the childhood origins, and the internal conflict between behavior is often the result of a struggle between the different parts of that mind. And he talked about the id, the ego, and the super. So the defense mechanism to cope with anxiety or intent conflict, the mind uses tools like denial, repression, or projection to protect itself from uncomfortable truths, facing the truth. Connection to your previous, anyway. So, we've talked about ADHD, we've talked about crime and deviance, we've talked about neuroticism, and all of those things. It's like that is part of, like, it's all kind of like a psychodynamic therapy. Unlike cognitive behavioral therapy, which focuses on changing current habits, psychodynamic therapy focuses on insight. The goal is to bring unconscious patterns into the light so the individual can understand why they do what they do and break free from old cycles. So we'll let him keep going here. It's kind of interesting stuff.
Well, and like Lucky Ward, he was actually diagnosed with many mental illnesses that they are saying, were rooted from his extreme childhood trauma. Psychoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, and psychotic disorder. And he had problems with impulse control, rage episodes that go back to his childhood, and institutionalization. I mean, he was 16 when he first went to jail. I mean, he had mental issues. I mean, and compared to Letitia, there was no mental issues there. I mean, he should have been. He just like Nicholas. They should both be not in jail. They should be in a psych ward somewhere, in a psychiatric hospital.
Right.
There should be in a psychiatric hospital, because I think Lucky Ward's issues are so deep, I don't know that he will ever come back from them.
Right.
But just to lay all of this on him, especially when he has all of these mental disorders, that makes it worse. That makes it worse to blame him. And not that he's not responsible for what he did. Yes, he's responsible. He did kill that woman. That one woman is what we know. But there was underlying issues that contributed to it. So why isn't he treated appropriately, in fairness and in treatment?
That is a big question, and I want to know that too. And maybe when he's retried, something like that will happen. I'm not sure. But see, now Letitia Stouch was diagnosed. She was diagnosed with personality disorders featuring borderline and narcissistic traits. But multiple experts concluded she was legally sane at the time she murdered her stepson, Gannett. During her 2023 trial, her mental diagnosis was a point of significant contention between prosecution and the defense experts. The expert diagnosis and findings. The state experts, the prosecution, forensic psychologists from the Colorado State Mental Hospital diagnosed her with personality dysfunction, specifically borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. They testified that she was feigning or exaggerating more severe symptoms, such as claiming she could summon vampires from the Twilight movie to avoid responsibility. Now, the defense experts, we know who Dr. Dorothy Lewis is. Oh, I would love to go play that right now. I might play that for us.
But
you know,
her diagnoses were very contested between the state and defense. I mean, the DID, that was her main thing, that she suffered from DID, multiple personalities. We know that was all bullshit. The state psychologist noted features of borderline personality disorder, mood swings and impulsiveness, and narcissistic personality disorder, which is entitlement and lack of empathy. She 100% had that. 100% had that.
But that's a sociopath.
Right. And she was diagnosed with anxiety in 2019. Well, which I mean, most everybody has anxiety.
Right.
She lacked documented history of severe mental illnesses or PTSD prior to the crime. And she also claimed to have bipolar, but they found no evidence of manic behaviors with her. So I think that was just Mrs. Lewis creating a narrative that she was hoping would stand up, because it was never really, I mean, other than the narcissistic personality disorder, that's the only one that was really, and of course she's a psychopath. That was the only one that was really truly documented. She had traits, but she's going to act like she has traits. This other man, he didn't act like anything. Lucky he had these things. He exhibited all these mental issues for many, 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 many years. I mean, when they let him out as a teenager, he should have gotten help and not just dumped him onto the streets, to where his mental illness could just be exacerbated by his environment, living on the streets, the drug activity, all of that. You know, he was set up for failure the moment that he was released from prison when he was 16.
Exactly. He was. So I have pulled up Letitia Stausch's Dr. Lewis. Let's watch Dr. Lewis. This is going to be full credit to True Crime Beat. I need to fix what I just said. Here we go. Let me get past that.
Hey guys, welcome back to True Crime with Shannon, where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and
if you follow the parts that I couldn't remember, they are.
Hang on. Over here. This is the most incredible.
She has many of the signs, symptoms, behaviors of a dissociative identity disorder. She also.
I'm going to get right back to where she started, because this is very interesting. It's about right there.
And didn't Dorothy Lewis say that she had extreme childhood trauma as well? Didn't Dorothy go down that route as well?
She tried to.
With Letitia?
She tried to. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we know that. I mean, she tried to say she had PTSD, and let's see, from being I guess essayed as a child, because she claims that, but she claimed that everybody essayed her. That's the problem with her. You don't know what's real, what's not real.
I mean, she claimed that as an adult too, to a certain extent,
She sure did. Here we go. All right. The best part of the trial.
The more I study her and the more I remember what happened and go over it, she has such a variety of different signs, symptoms, and behaviors. She has many of the signs, symptoms, behaviors of a dissociative identity disorder. She also, if you follow the material, as you recall, I could not remember it clearly. If you follow the parts that I couldn't remember, they're confused. They make no sense. They are psychotic. They are
Let me make this bigger.
they're incomprehensible.
My screen. Sorry, guys.
System dysfunction that I could deal with. It's always fun for a doctor to be able to treat and to be able to make something better. And so far, we're not able to do that.
Despite that, are you able to come with an expert opinion regarding her sanity at the time of the death of Gannon?
Yes.
What is your opinion?
Well, I think that she was that assuming that this area is about the time that Gannon was.
What do you mean assuming? What do you mean assuming? You either know what time or you don't know. See, the thing about Dr. Lewis and this testimony and all of this is she seems like she doesn't really even know the crime or something, right? I mean, it's kind of crazy. She's so all over the place. That's what it is. She's all over the place here.
Well, I mean, and didn't they define her as malingering too? Like intentionally fabricating and exaggerating her conditions. So I mean, that just points to the fact that she's sane. Because if you're really insane, you can't do those things. You know what I mean?
Right. That's right.
Somebody that's really insane is not going to be able to be malingering and do all of these things and fake all this stuff and all these rare symptoms that she said that she had. It's like she read a book and said, okay, this is how I need to act. This is what I need to do. And like Dorothy Lewis believed her.
But that's because everybody that Dorothy Lewis sees has DID, because that is what she treats is DID.
So she should be able to see the difference between somebody who's faking it than somebody who really has it.
But here's the thing. There's a big controversy about Dr. Lewis and is there such a thing as DID and to begin with. So let's let this play while I pull something up. Hang on. Here we go. Very interesting.
Killed.
Yes.
She was psychotic at the time. She was not in touch with reality, and she did not. I don't think she knew the difference between right and wrong. I don't know whether she even knew what she was doing.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Cross-examination.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Young.
What's the legal definition of insanity in the state of Colorado, Doctor?
I believe that you must know the nature of what you have done and that it was wrong, and that also I think that you do add on a bit of the Durham decision, which has to do with if you cannot control your behaviors, such as to comply with the requisites of law. I believe that that is also part of an insanity defense here.
Did you look at the statute regarding insanity for the state of Colorado prior to rendering opinions in this case?
I did, but I would have to look at it again to look at it. And I've also discussed it with others, which is why I added the Durham decision and the ability to conform your behavior, because to my mind, in many courts where I've testified, that is no longer accepted. But it was my understanding from the attorneys that that is also an aspect of insanity, the inability to conform your behavior to what is required by law.
Is that the aspect that you use in rendering your opinions in this case?
That is only one of the aspects.
Well, tell us the elements. This is what you're here for. You're here to testify that this defendant was saying at the time she committed this crime. I'd like you to explain to the jury now what law you used in rendering that opinion.
Would you permit me to read it, and I will tell you what aspects of it
You're the expert.
concentrated on. By and large, I used the McNaughton definition of whether the person knew the nature of what he or she was doing and that it was wrong. And so that was my, that was my orientation. And then I was pleased to learn from the attorneys that also the inability to conform one's behavior to the requirements of law was also part of the definition in Colorado. The accuracy of that, I don't know, but we have discussed it. And I've said that I was surprised. I was unaware that in the other states, that since the Reagan shooting, I had thought that most of that was not any longer recognized. But I was told by the attorneys that that was one of the other factors that played a role.
As you sit here right now, do you know the legal definition of insanity in the state of Colorado?
If you would show me show me as it is written out, I will tell you whether this is what I used. I can't say it to you verbatim, but the idea has to do with whether you knew the nature of what you were doing and that it was wrong.
Well, clearly you have experience in testifying in criminal cases. You said 100 or 200 times, right?
Right.
And so you know that when you write a report, that report comes to the prosecution, comes to the defense, it goes to the court, correct?
Yes, you do.
And in your report, you want to put what the legal definition of insanity is in the state of Colorado, because that's what you're here for. That's what you're here to testify about, correct?
When you have written a complete report with all of the data that you require to come to that conclusion, and then try to go word by word with the definition, yes, you would try to use that. Here we were using.
Okay, so I'm going to stop for just a minute for fair use. Then I am going to drop True Crime with Shannon. I'm going to put her the link to her channel in our chat for anybody who wants to go to her channel and check it out, because I am using her work and I want to appreciate it. I want to let her know that we thank her for letting us use her her recording of Dr. Lewis. So I need to go we'll find it. We'll drop it in chat. But here we go. I can't do it right now, but anyway.
As much data as we could get. And again, if I'm mistaken and it is not an understanding of the nature of what the person is doing and that it is wrong, then I have made an error.
Yes, you have.
Well, this is what you say about insanity in your report. You say, based upon the evidence that I reviewed, in my opinion, Ms. Stock was insane at the time of the homicide and the days following, period.
Stop.
That's right. And I believe that at the time she was psychotic. And whether you use the McNaughton definition, whether you use the Durham decision or a variation of it, she was psychotic at the time. I believe she did not know what she was doing. I'm not certain she even knows that she did do it now as we speak. Okay. And that it was wrong is if she doesn't know that she did it, the question of whether or not she knows it is wrong is something that can be debated. But I think that she does not appreciate the nature of what she did, or that it was wrong, and that she is guilty of having murdered Gannon.
So she's guilty of having murdered Gannon, but she's legally insane as well. Is that what you're saying?
I think that she murdered Gannon. I shouldn't use the word guilty. She murdered Gannon. Again, I think you're teasing me a bit. If you would just rephrase that, I can tell you whether, because you're making me feel, gee, maybe there's a totally different definition here. But from our discussions recently about this, what had struck me most about Colorado was that you also included an inability to conform one's behavior to what was required by law. I don't know if that's wrong, but this is what I discussed with her attorneys, and part of at least what I have gone by. In addition, I believe that she did not know the nature of what she was doing.
But you knew when you came here, you're coming to Colorado, you knew that your opinion would be applied to the law in Colorado, and you knew this jury here would be listening to your opinion to see if what you had to say made sense with the law.
Yes.
You've done that to 100 to 200 times, correct?
I would guess, yeah.
And I've read your other reports. In your other reports, you define what insanity is in that particular state, and you explain in your report why you think someone was legally insane at the time based on the law. Why did you not do that in this case?
I would have to look at the definition, and I'm sure once I look at it, I can tell you why I did not use the exact words that perhaps are there. What a reason why in plain English I did not, I believe she was insane, is that she is psychotic. When someone is psychotic, they are out of contact with reality. They do not know the nature of what they are doing, whether it is right, wrong, or indifferent. And she is and was psychotic, and therefore she was insane. If you wish to give that a different flourish or something different about it. I very much doubt that what I'm saying to you will conflict with.
Let's welcome in our new person. I've just noticed that homely tormentor, it's homely tormentor something. Anyway, welcome in. We're happy to see you. Thank you for coming by and watching us. We're just watching a little bit of Letitia Stouch and Dorothy Lewis as we talk about cognitive psychology. So here we go. Thank you.
What you're saying is there's some reason that her being psychotic and not knowing right from wrong or what she was doing, that this is not insanity in your state?
Did you write this report, doctor?
Of course I wrote the report. I wrote, this is not a complete report. I wrote, I wrote it, sent it, and had it typed. Yes.
Typed it.
I cannot tell you who typed it.
Who'd you send it to?
I sent it to Mr. Tellini.
What did you send to Mr. Tellini?
You have them.
I'm asking you a question, doctor. What did you send to Mr. Tellini?
I sent him a brief report. Initially, there was an early title that.
See, I mean, this is completely improper. Okay, there's no reason for the defense attorney's office to be typing or transcribing the report. There's no way to know that it's word for word what she said.
Yeah, you know that for a fact.
Right. So this was very improper, and that's why he's all over her about this. But I tell you what's very interesting. We might stop watching this for a second and actually go out and watch her interview that she had with Letitia Stouch. Let's do that. Let's hang on a second here. I want to go find that. It's on. I think it's hang on a second. Let's go back over here and find it. I think it's on Law and Crime. So just a second, guys. Dr. Lewis, the interview. Okay. Because it's very, remember how she acted in the interview, feigning. I think we use Law and Crimes because, they're pretty easy about letting people. She's Dr. Dorothy, not the testimony. I want to see the actual interview that she had. Is it right here? Day 19, the video. Is it right there? I think it's this one. No, I'm not using hers. Nope. Let's see. Dr. Lewis, that's day 19.
And see, being psychotic does not meet the definition of being legally insane. You can be psychotic and still be legally sane. So for her to continue to say, well, she was psychotic, it's apples and oranges. Psychosis means that you lose contact with reality.
Right.
Legally insane is a totally different definition.
I'm looking for Law and Crime. I want to find theirs. Hang on a second, guys. Just a second. Because she's stumbling around and all that kind of stuff, right? So she brings, okay, is this it? Alicia's down. Okay, Maria, okay, here we go. During the interview with this famous psychiatrist. Here we go. So
so they're two totally different things. It's not even the same.
Yeah, hang on. All right, now, is this going to be it?
That's not where I want to be.
Yeah, let's get to where we can actually see Dr. Lewis. Remember that? I know y'all remember watching this.
Didn't she have her kid or somebody in the room too while she was interviewing her?
Right. Okay, so let me get full credit to Law and Crime and then we'll show this.
There was somebody else in the room when she was talking to Letitia, if I'm not mistaken.
It's her son.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Also, I believe was improper. I mean, this.
Yeah.
She
Absolutely.
Made a mess. The whole thing, she made a mess of. Okay, so here we go. Now, this is actually the interview itself. This is full credit. Everybody gets very used with Law and Crime. So here we go.
People, I'm going to make sure they're okay.
I'm going to slow it down so you can actually hear it.
We always make sure that people are going to be okay.
Okay, there we go. Now,
could you just
make it bigger so you can
understand why I'm always being asked what is going on in here? Because this is my job to do things for people and to protect them. Because it's what I have to do. That is people have to protect you. I was always do that because if people are molesting kids and people are hurting kids, this is what I do for them. And if people are hurting elderly people and people are always doing this to people, this is what I'm going to do. And if people are inside your home or inside my home, I'm going to protect them. Do you understand that?
Watch what she does. This is pathetic. I hope it's not just locking up, is it? Let's see. Let's see. I hope they didn't stop it. Or is she just sitting there? Okay, there we go. Oh, come on, go. What is it doing? See how nobody's moving? I hope it's not locking up, guys. Hang on a second. It should be going. Okay, there it goes. Now, I don't know why it's sitting there like that. I think it's just something that happened during the courtroom, but okay, there she goes. Oh, let me get that out of the way. Oh, now she's going to be somebody else, right? Mm-hmm.
Do you know where you are? Yeah. And what I talked to Taylor.
Why are you writing it? Why don't you say it?
Taylor, do you know what just happened? What? Yes, ma'am. What just happened? You asked me about my girlfriend. I asked you to do that. Oh, we were talking about Fred. It's Fred here. Prison though. Yeah, he did work at a prison. I think it was in Lumberton, North Carolina. Where? Lumberton, North Carolina. Yeah.
I wonder what that looks like.
We do know what just happened with you.
You know, on Facebook, I believe that, hang on a second, guys. On Facebook, I believe the whole interview is just like on Facebook. However, sometimes if you bring in something else that's not like a YouTube, you get hit with third-party content. And I don't really want to do that. So that is why we're watching it this way. Just an explanation.
Something very sketchy. Then I spoke with someone who said, I protect them, I always protect them, I never pay the Oh, sorry. Sorry. Oh, I don't know. I just think who is the protection? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I don't get it. I was saying sorry. I don't know what we were talking about. We were talking about credits, and I remember. You told me that it was a kind of space. It's the rest of the things. Who would be the protector? Oh, my protector is Maria. Maria, I would like very much to talk with you. If you want to talk to Maria, I don't know. Sometimes she'll talk, sometimes she won't. Whatever. I love it for you, Taylor. Yeah. Taylor, you look at such a kind of
Now,
where is this?
while we sit here and we watch this like this, and look at the smile on her face, you know she is pretending. Every bit of this is pretend. But what upsets me about Dr. Lewis is she will not admit that this bitch is over here pretending. I mean, come on. It's so easy to see right here that she's pretending. What's wrong with Dr. Lewis? Jesus.
When say Maria is in love. I like to go hang out and drink some wine and be by the beach and hang out with Tyler.
Doing that right now. Well, no. Now you can see it better.
To go there and let me know with Maria. And but now I'd like you to put this session place and Maria, I need to talk to you. Because Maria, you have a lot of control. What people say, is that correct? I think she does, for sure, but I need to talk with you. Yeah, I know you're hearing. And you know,
Oops. Okay, so that's I guess it's not going to see the whole one. Okay, so now we're going to go back to what we were watching, which was, Dr. Lewis's. But I just think it's interesting how we can see what's happening, right? Why can't they see it? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, testimony, Letitia. Okay, we'll go back to that. Now, do y'all remember which one we were watching? Dang it. Oh, go to my history. We'll be able to see it from there. Hang on a minute. We'll go to the history. New channel. Let's go to history. All right. Whoop. Well, that's none of these, is it? You see history? Oh, there we go. Here we go. History. Right here. There we go. Now we'll go back to watching here, right where we left off at.
Is a preliminary psychiatric impression, and then subsequently modified it to try to include anything that I had left out. If after he saw my initial report, if I had left anything out that I thought should be there.
What you left out in your initial report was your opinion with regards to insanity, correct?
In my initial communication with him, absolutely. I gave him what I had up until then.
And you requested in your initial evaluation that you wanted an MRI done, an EEG done, as well as a neuropsych exam with several tests that you listed in your report, correct?
Right.
And you wanted those done before you rendered an opinion as to insanity in the state of Colorado, correct?
I wanted it before I testified, yes.
And none of those items got done.
No.
Yet you still issued a second report claiming that she's insane without any definition of why she's insane.
Well, I gave you the definition that she is psychotic and gave you the data to show it, but I did not write it in the form in which I would if I had all of those data to include in it. And I did not have them. And, I could not include as it was my understanding that the court refused to finance the EEG and the MRI and the neuropsychological testing. So I gave you as much as I could from
Let's talk about that. On October 13th, 2022, you were scheduled to come testify to this court about why you wanted an EEG and MRI done, correct? You recall that?
No. But say that again?
Do you not recall being asked?
I just feel sorry for her sometimes.
I really don't want to say that it's her age, what have you, but she's.
We're going to go past that.
I have no idea what you're referring to, because I would have been pleased to at least talk on the phone to the judge or whatever. I begged to have these things done. I can only tell you that. And I would have spoken to anyone who wanted to talk to me about it.
Well, you were contacted well before February 2022 on this case, correct?
Absolutely.
And you were contacted before Ms. Stout pled not guilty by reason of insanity, correct?
Right.
And she pled not guilty by reason of insanity on February 11th of 2022, correct?
I'm assuming your dates are correct, yeah.
And you didn't do anything on this evaluation until November of 2022?
I worked as hard as I could to get these. In fact, I called the neurologist for free, Dr. James Marikangas, to discuss the case because I could not get funding from this court to get these tests done. So I called and discussed it with him. I contacted Catherine Yeager, Dr. Yeager, the neuropsychologist with whom I've worked for 30 years, and worked with her and spoke with her and got as much data as I possibly could. And I begged her attorneys to get this. And their answer was that the court would not pay for those tests to be done. I had never heard, in fact, I said, I've never heard of this before, but it did not occur to me to pick up the phone and to call the judge. I didn't even know who the judge was, but I was told I could not get this and that I must get something in by then. So I didn't even call my initial contact a complete report on it. Well, I'm trying to see what I called it. I called it initial psychiatric impression, right?
Right, yeah, because you wanted that information before you rendered an opinion as to insanity, correct?
That is true.
And, at this time, I'd like the court to take judicial notice that on October 13, 2022, the request to have an EEG done, an MRI done by defense was withdrawn, and we did not go to hearing on that.
Mr. Tellini, defense position. Court will take judicial notice that on October 13 of 2022, the defense withdrew its request for an EEG in this case.
As well as MRI.
As well as an MRI.
Were you ever told that?
This is news to me right now. So
And of course, if this would have been done, it would have been 3 years after the crime happened. Right?
it would have been later, yes.
And so there'd be a gap between the time of the crime and the time the MRI and EEG were done.
Yes.
A lot of things could have happened in the jail within that time period that may have caused damage to Miss Stauch's head.
This is just speculative. It would have been extremely helpful to get those data and then to see whether they looked like the kind of material that was something that would have been.
You know, I question this right here because I would like to know why did the defense attorneys follow their motion to not proceed with the MRI and the EEG? What did happen to make them not follow through? Was this some kind of stall? Was it a stall? Did it have something to do with planning some kind of an appeal? I mean, why did they do this to her? Because clearly what happened now, they set up their own witness to not be able to do her job. So she's over there putting a report together based on what? You know, her discussion that she had with Letitia that day, where Letitia pretended to be Maria and all that other trash. It's kind of weird, isn't it? What do you think, Sprinkle? What do you think happened there?
Yeah, I know. It is weird. It is weird. And Letitia was just all over Maria, and then she was somebody else, and she was somebody else, and then the cape, and she was just everywhere. To me, I just can't see that she didn't realize it was nothing but a big show. And then she threw her little accent in there. It's like,
yeah.
Did Dorothy forget about like her training and be able to?
It's crazy. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that, and so
my earbuds fell out and I lost Mac. Yeah, like she just. Yeah. Like for some reason she believed every single thing that she said and didn't. I don't know. It was just weird. It was just the whole thing was weird. Just weird.
Extremely weird. All right, we'll let it keep playing. But I mean, she was ill-equipped. I will agree with that. She was ill-equipped. Okay.
And long-lasting or something that was sudden, so that I can't really speculate on that. I did want it done then, and it mattered then.
But it didn't get done, and yet you still rendered your opinion, didn't you?
I rendered, and I've described what I know about the case, and I've given you my opinion of it, yes.
Despite what you wrote in your book, guilty by reason of insanity. You're familiar with your book, right? That it's easy to fake mental illnesses, especially when it comes to dissociative identity disorder. And that's why you want collateral information like an MRI or an EEG to corroborate, correct?
It's not exactly correct. You don't get that to corroborate dissociative identity disorder. No, you get that to corroborate neurologic or neuropsychological impairment. No, you don't get that for dissociation.
Page 108. You've probably heard this a million times when you testified, I would imagine, right?
I don't know. You'd have to read me.
Okay. Let me read it to you. Psychiatry, as every prosecutor who has ever cross-examined me has never hesitated to point out, is a soft discipline compared with the harder medical discipline of, say, neurology. You remember saying that?
Yeah, there it is.
The difference between neurology and psychiatry is analogous in some ways to the difference between hard neurologic signs and soft neurologic signs. Sound familiar?
Yes, go ahead.
An MRI shows abnormal mass in the brain. The EEG shows localized spike and wave complexes. In other words, evidence of brain damage is clear. Remember saying that?
Or I should have said of brain dysfunction. I said of brain damage.
Yeah. You said evidence of brain damage is clear.
Correct. Should say of brain dysfunction.
Okay. What did you mean by that? Is that why you wanted the MRI and the EEG?
Of course I wanted that, but not in order to, you would not get a special, as I said to the jury, you would not get a special MRI or EEG based on a dissociative disorder. If, however, you do get this abnormal MRI or EEG, you then start looking in another direction and you start thinking, not only may we have dissociation, but there is some kind of documented brain dysfunction. It's operating differently. And so you would like that because you would have, Mr. Tellini would have a lot easier case if he were able to document that a lot of her signs, symptoms, and behaviors are the result of abnormal electrical activity. And or, as in a recent case that I did early, I think
and Doctor, I'm going to stop you there. Let me stop you there, Doctor, because I want to stick to my questions here, okay? The EEG or MRI could have showed nothing as well, right? No brain damage.
That's right.
And that would also help you in forming your opinion as well, wouldn't it?
Well, it certainly would not have confirmed a documented neurologic dysfunction.
And so all you had to go on is really Ms. Stauch's self-reporting to you in the forensic interview that you conducted.
Performance.
Well, that's simple. I can't go along with that. That's all we had. But we did not have the additional neuropsychological and neurological data that I would very much have liked and I would still like. And I had no idea that this was ever withdrawn. It was my idea, or it was my understanding, that the court had refused to grant the funding to have these things done, which in my experience is a first.
Well, now you know what happened, though. So why do you keep saying you know what happened?
I don't.
The court just took judicial notice that the defense withdrew their request.
I know what you're telling me, but it would be presumptuous for me to say I know now. You've put me in the middle of a debate that I can't enter into.
Why did Mr. Tellini contact you? Did he tell you?
I assume because he thought that I was reputable and experienced in this field. I think he also became aware that I existed because of the documentary that was done on my work and my life.
About dissociative identity disorder?
No, about all of my work.
When you advised him that you felt there was enough evidence for the defendant to plead not guilty by reason of insanity, what did you base that on?
I based that on, probably in my own head, I based it on the McNaughton rule, which would be that she did not know the nature of what she had done, and or that it was wrong. And also subsequently, after discussing it with Mr. Tellini, based on the Durham decision that she did not have control over what she was doing, that she could not conform her behavior to that which the law required.
How did you know that back in February of 2022 when you hadn't interviewed her until November of 2022?
I'm sorry, I would have to look over what I had looked at and what I had, what I had reviewed up to the time. And I'm sorry, I can't give you the dates so that we can.
Well, did you review anything prior to talking to Mr. Tellini for the first time about the defendant changing her plea to not guilty by reason of insanity?
I'm not aware of his having changed a plea. No, I assumed, in fact, when he called me, that he thought that probably that there was an insanity defense here, and I did not think that he had one. He was pleading not guilty first, and then changed it to NGRA. I don't know.
You don't remember?
No, it isn't that I don't remember. It's that I assumed when he called me that he suspected that there was that she was suffering from a severe mental disorder that conformed to the criteria for insanity.
And when that happens, you had done hundreds of forensic evaluations with a lot of people who are on death row, some serious big-time murderers. Is that fair? There's a difference between a death penalty case and a homicide case, correct?
Yes.
Death penalty people are the worst of the worst?
Oh, it depends on what your state is like. No, it doesn't depend on the worst of the worst. It depends on what the law is in your state and the humanity of your state. It doesn't depend on the worst of the worst.
So people who kill and commit serious crimes are usually charged with death penalty cases. Is that fair?
Say that once more.
You tell me. What's the difference between a normal homicide case and a death penalty case?
Where the state in which you commit your offense.
The more you listen to Dr. Lewis,
hang on a second, guys.
Testify.
Go past this. I hope we can hear the rest of it, but maybe not. Oh, don't do that.
The end of.
Well, it might not be on here. Okay, well that's okay. We'll just stop looking at it. Anyway, so we'll go back to what we were talking about. But anyway, I mean, you watch this and you see that clearly. You could tell that she's completely making it up, feigning everything else, but you got Dr. Lewis over here just still pleading with him. And then, remember she got in trouble with it. She got in trouble in the court and everything else. But anyway, whereas with our Lucky Ward, he wasn't feigning at all. He completely tried to hang himself and with his own sock. He had meltdowns. I mean, he had extreme mental disorders. So, he is in a much different place as far as his cognitive psychology versus Letitia Stouch's cognitive psychology. And because we've been on here 2 hours and 18 minutes, I'm like, oh my gosh, look how long we've been going here. I'm going to have to get off soon, but I just wanted to come back and talk about this, compare the two cases, and look at what really happened to these people and why is Lucky Ward different than Letitia Stouch, right? And we know why. Because Lucky Ward really is mentally ill, and Letitia Stouch is not really mentally ill. She's feigning. She's making it up. But Dr. Lewis was the worst. Here's a question I have. Now, we know she's going to get retried, right? Here's the question, though. She's not going to have the same attorneys because they are not going to represent her again. They know that they almost ruined their reputation and credibility by representing her. And they're not going to call Dr. Lewis in again because Dr. Lewis was the worst mistake they made in the whole trial as far as the defense goes, because she was not capable of making an opinion, period. But they used her because of the fact that everybody that she has looked at has DID. She's never had it. And I'm going to find this information and share it with you. So Dr. Lewis, all the people that she looks at, she interviews, okay, are DID. Let's take a look. I remember seeing this somewhere, and okay, Dr. Lewis. Okay. Her most famous cases are, hang on a second. Some experts question overdiagnosis of DID. Courts are cautious using these diagnoses in criminal cases, and critics argue it can be used to mitigate responsibility too far, like it's used too often. And Dr. Lewis wrote this book, and she has this other documentary that she did on DID, and quite frankly, some of the people that were diagnosed with DID has now came out and it's been found out that they were just making it up as well. I believe the Billy guy, Billy, let me look him up right quick. I believe he is one of those that it later came out that he did not have DID. He was making him up. So let me look that up right quick. Billy and Dr. Lewis and DID. Hang on. Yeah. Billy Milligan, yes. Dorothy Lewis was part of the group of experts who studied offenders with severe trauma and disassociation, and cases like Milligan are often discussed alongside her work. What happened in Billy's case? He was arrested in the 1970s for kidnapping and assault. The defense argued that he had dissociative identity disorder, claimed multiple personalities committed the crimes, not his core identity. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity. He was sent to a psychiatric hospital instead of a prison. Why this case is famous? It's one of the first major U.S. cases where DID was successfully used in court. It sparked a huge debate about mental illness versus responsibility and the validity of DID. The DID diagnoses are heavily disputed. Courts are very cautious, and most insanity defenses fail. So they're not successful with that most of the time. The bottom line is that Billy Milligan it's a rare case where DID defense worked. Dr. Lewis studied similar patterns of trauma and disassociation. So I believe, hang on a second. The man who claimed he had 24 personalities and beat the system, but was it real or manipulation? That is the question. I believe in Billy Milligan's, it was manipulation. It was violent. I think that's what happened. So let me look it up again. Was it fabricated? Because I believe there's something where it came out later that it says it was. Let me look and see. Not all the psychiatrists agreed on his diagnosis, and some believed that he could have been exaggerating or role playing. Like Gypsy Rose Blanchard, that role playing, right? Yeah. So it's a highly controversial case with no full consensus. So there you go. Now, was Billy Milligan a groundbreaking mental health case, or most convincing performances ever seen in a courtroom? This sparks debate. I mean, it avoids being dismissed, and it pulls viewers in hard. That's a case that everybody looks at. So, but it goes along with the psychology, and it goes along with this cognitive psychology, and what happens in the mind of those people. And I think it's been a very interesting debate, a very interesting discussion. And we'll have to come back on it again, I guess. I don't know. We'll find, I'm sure, because there's so many cases where this absolutely could have been used, but it wasn't used. Because for whatever reason, well, okay, let's look at Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Now, Gypsy Rose Blanchard, let's see. I hear you scrubbing something. What is Gypsy Rose Blanchard? What is that noise? Gypsy Rose Blanchard, did she have DID? Let's take a look. Let's see what it says about her. No, there's no credible evidence that Gypsy Rose Blanchard ever had dissociative identity disorder. She was involved. She pled guilty to second-degree murder. And, okay, see, it always wants to come back to Munchausen by proxy, which we know was not real. It did not happen. Her mother did not have Munchausen by proxy. None of that is real. It was all made up. And anyway, so that's enough about that. Okay, well, let's just call it a day and get off of here, and we'll just come back maybe tomorrow, maybe on Sunday. I'm not sure when I'm going to come back. But I hope you all enjoyed the show, and I hope you enjoyed hearing and learning about cognitive psychology and how it affects different cases. They both committed murders, but they both were very two different mindsets. That's what I'm going to say about it. So be careful out there. Have a good evening. Take care of yourself. Have a good weekend if I don't come back and see you. And Sprinkle.
And hug your babies.
That's right. Life is short and our time with them is even shorter. So anyway, with that, you all have a good night. Thank you for stopping by. Please hit that like button on the way in or the way out. And if you're listening to this in your car on your drive home, that's even better. Y'all have a good evening. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.